Hello and welcome to English Digest. I'm Seb.
And I'm Elsie. How are you today, Seb?
Great, I'm fantastic.
Really, are you sure? You look a bit tired.
Okay, you got me. That wasn't quite true. I am quite tired. I'm not fantastic. I guess I wasn't being so honest just then. But seeing as we're on that subject, let's talk about honesty. That's being truthful. Tell me, what do you think of this quote? Being honest never hurts anyone. Being a liar only hurts you.
Wow, that's very strong and very true.
Mm-hmm.
So, have you always been so honest? No, you were not honest with
me, right? I just lied to you.
You just lied. Okay, so I guess sometimes we lie to people. Just to be nice or... I don't know. What do you think?
I think people lie more than they mean to. I think we lie for lots of different reasons. I definitely lied more when I was a kid. Like, I didn't like getting in arguments and I didn't like getting in trouble. So when I was small, I used to tell a lot of fibs, we could say. In British English, when we're talking to kids, we say stop fibbing or stop telling fibs when people are lying, F-I-B. But I think we also tell lies not to hurt people's feelings, and also if we think that our opinion is going to be received badly as well.
Yeah,
those are some reasons we might tell lies.
Sometimes the truth hurts.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why we choose to tell white lies, right?
Exactly. That's why we choose to tell white lies. And that is exactly what we're going to be talking about in our first translation. So let's dive right in. Okay, so our first sentence reads, withholding your real thoughts and opinions may seem like a quick way to lose your friend's trust, but this may not always be the case.
今天呢，我们要翻译的中文是隐瞒你真实的想法和意见，看似是一种快速失去朋友信任的方式，但可能并非总是如此。
That's interesting to me. How would you feel if your best friend lied to you, Elsie? Has that ever happened?
Not really, but if that happened, I would feel very, very sad and betrayed.
Right, because your best friend is supposed to be someone you can trust all the time.
That's right. 那这边我们在讲的是一个 fact， 是一个事实，所以呢，我们要使用的是 present simple， 现在简单式描述这个事实。那我们首先要讲的就是隐瞒的用法咯。我们可以用 withhold 这个动词，那也可以用 hide, disguise 或是 conceal 来替换。那马上给同学们一个例句 Winnie tried to conceal her sadness during the party so she wouldn't bring the mood down.Whitney 在派对中试着隐瞒自己的悲伤，才不会让气氛变得低落。
We can also turn these words into nouns as well, or we can turn most of them into nouns. However, only one of them can be used as a noun and mean the same thing, and that word is disguise. We can disguise something, or we can wear a disguise. Same spelling. A disguise is clothes or other accessories you wear to make yourself look like someone else. I guess we could also talk about Halloween costumes as being a kind of disguise, which is true and not true, because it's a disguise because you pretend to look like someone else, but it's not a disguise because everyone knows that you're dressing up. Nobody really thinks that you're a zombie, for example. So with a disguise, it needs to be something you're pretending to be someone else and people think you're someone else. That's
and you don't
the
want
trick.
to be discovered.
Yes, you don't want to be found out. Now, another word we can turn into a noun here is hide. Hide can also be a noun. However, when we change the meaning of hide to a noun, when we change it to a noun, it changes meaning to the skin of an animal. So, for example, cowhide is leather. It's the skin of the cow that you use to make leather. And lastly, with conceal, we can turn that into concealer, which is a noun which means makeup, basically. A kind of makeup you use to...
遮瑕.
Yes.
To cover the spots on your face.
Exactly, to hide the spots or dark circles and things like that. Okay, but we're not talking about hiding things from our friends, are we? What is the next translation point?
再来呢，我们要学到的是做点点点的方法，可以用 the way to 加上原形动词，或者是 the way of 后面加上 VING。如果要表示以点点点的方式的话呢，我们要用到介系词 in a or in an 再接上 adjective 形容词，再加上方法方式，也就是 way 这个字。So for example, Chris always speaks in a confident way, which makes people pay attention to him. Chris 他讲话的时候呢，总是相当自信，这让人们注意到他。
Good point. You know, I think depending on the lie, you might quickly lose your friend's trust if you were found out. Now, to be found out means to have a lie you told be discovered. So I actually used it just now, just earlier. Basically, it means to have something you were hiding come to light. For example, I was trying to keep Becca's surprise birthday party a secret, but I was found out. She discovered that I was planning that party. So basically that is what that means. Let's move on now and look at be the case. Are we talking about a briefcase?
No, we're not talking about the briefcase. Be the case 代表的是呢，是如此，是这么回事。好，给同学们一个例句咯。Tanya thinks I hate her, but that isn't the case. 并非如此。I'm just shy around her. 我只是在她旁边很害羞而已。Okay, moving on to our sentence number 2.
Yes, moving on to sentence number 2. White lies told to avoid hurting other people's feelings might actually be beneficial for interpersonal relationships.
OK, 那这边的中文是呢，为了避免伤害别人的感情而说的善意的谎言，实际上可能对人际关系有益。真的吗？ Is that true? 时态的话呢，一样我们要用到现在简单式描述事实。
So what is a white lie?
我们刚刚有稍微提到过，这个 white lie 就是善意的谎言，那表示呢，为了你不想要伤害或是冒犯别人而说的小谎话。So for example, Daniel told his mother a white lie so she wouldn't worry while he was mountain climbing. Daniel 对他妈妈说了一个善意的谎言，这样在他登山的时候，他才不会担心。So maybe he told his mother that he wasn't going to go mountain climbing.So,
what are some other examples where we might use a white lie? Or not us personally, but where you could tell a white lie? Because...
So normally we tell a white lie just to be polite.
Yes, but we normally tell them if it's not too consequential, meaning it doesn't have a big effect. Like if it's a small question, they're going to forget about it in 5 minutes.Then you can tell a white lie. A similar idiom while we're talking about white things is a white elephant. Have you heard of white elephants, Elsie?
An elephant that doesn't exist?
I've never heard that interpretation of it before. It's not an elephant that doesn't exist. No, it's actually a gift.It's something that is more trouble than the benefits it brings. So, for example, let's say for your birthday, I give you a very delicate orchid, a very delicate flower, and it's very, very beautiful and very, very rare. But you have to do loads and loads and loads of things to keep it alive. You know, you need to water it 8 times a day, different amounts of water. You need to buy special food for it. You need to move it around your house. It's causing you a lot of trouble. It's causing you a lot of mafan. And it only looks pretty. So it's more annoying than it is good. And for that reason, we call it a white elephant.Interesting,
a white elephant. OK, 再来呢，我们刚刚讲了很久善意的谎言，说谎，我们动词用的是 tell。那这个 lie 也可以做动词，搭配介系词 to 来表示对某人说谎 ，lie to somebody。那你也可以搭配介系词 about 来表示你说了什么谎。So for example, why did you lie to me about requesting time off work? Now we're both in trouble. 你为什么要对我说谎？说要请假呢，现在我们两个都有麻烦了。再来一个呢，我们可以说the applicant lied about his experience, so he'd be more likely to get the job. 这位求职者对他的经历说谎，这样他才更有可能得到这份工作。
And I also want to look a little bit at the grammar of this sentence as well. We can see at the beginning we've got white lies told to avoid hurting other people's feelings. Now, we're not saying the white lies told something. The white lies obviously can't speak. What we've got here is actually a relative clause. Now, normally with relative clauses, we begin them with words like that or which. Well, actually, in US English, normally just that, actually. So a normal relative clause would be white lies that are told to avoid hurting other people's feelings. But one thing you can do with more advanced English is you can actually omit the that are to make it shorter. So that's how we get white lies told to avoid hurting other people's feelings. Some examples of this could be clothes you don't want anymore can be exchanged here. Or money collected at this event will go to the homeless. Both of these we could put that are after the subject. Now, there are a couple of things to remember when you use this structure. You should think a little bit about what the verb means. So if it's a verb that could cause confusion, it's best not to use this. For example, with white lies told to avoid other people hurting people's feelings, that's okay because obviously, a lie is something you say. It can't speak. It can't tell you something. So for that reason, we can use the contracted relative clause. But if it's a verb that could sound like it acts on the subject, then it could be a little bit more confusing. So bear that in mind when you use this grammar.
好，再来我们要讲到的是避免，可以用动词 avoid， 那后面呢要注意只能接名词或是动名词当作受词哦。句型就是 avoid 加上名词或加上 VING。那 prevent 它也有避免预防的意思，常见的用法是 prevent somebody or something from。那 from 碰到了介系词后面一样名词或 VING 的用法，那它可以表示的是使免于或是防止某人做某事。So for example, to prevent his 2-year-old son from getting hurt, Dan put soft edges on the tables in his house. 为了防止2岁的儿子受伤， Dan 在他家的桌子上面装上软边。
Now, seeing as we're talking about preventing, we can also talk about this other verb, neglecting things. This is quite similar, I think, to the word avoid that we had earlier. Now, when we neglect something, we fail to do something, or when we neglect to do something, we fail to do something that we should do. We fail to do a responsibility. So, for example, when Daisy neglected to water her houseplants, they quickly died. Okay, so Daisy's job here is to water her houseplants, and she's not doing it, and therefore they died. So we can't use this in the sentence. We can't say white lie is told to neglect hurting other people's feelings. And the reason why we can't use it there is we can only use neglect if we're talking about not doing a responsibility or not doing something you should do. Obviously, you don't want to hurt people's feelings, so we can't use it in that context. Lastly, remember with neglect, you can either neglect to do something or you can neglect something. Now, if you just put an object, a noun or something at the end, then what you're saying is you are ignoring that thing or you're not paying enough attention to it. So we could say, Daisy's mother neglected her when she was young. Her mother did not spend enough time looking after her. Her mother didn't care about her, basically, is what that would mean. Next, let's move on to this word beneficial that we've got later in the sentence.
Okay, beneficial 这个形容词代表有益处的，那我们可以用 be beneficial for something 或是 be good for or do somebody good 也可以表示对某事物或是对某人有益处，那相当于呢就是 benefit 这个动词加上名词了。那还有一个是 benefit from， 那就代表从当中可以获得益处。好，所以要小心不要混淆了。So for example, a little more sleep would do you good. You seem to be tired all the time. 所以多睡一点呢，对你有好处，你似乎一直都很累。
So, as we're talking about beneficial and benefits, I want to add in a little phrase here, reap the benefits. You can reap the benefits of something. Now, reap, that's R-E-A-P, means basically to harvest or to take in a crop. And when you reap the benefits of something, you get all the good things out of it. So, for example, that internship that you've just got sounds very good. You should reap all the benefits of it while you can. Okay, so while you're working in that job, you should do what you can to make sure you get all the good experiences you can. So you can reap the benefits of a job, you can reap the benefits of a class or of a positive situation.
也就是在付出一些 hard work 之后呢，你可以获得的益处，获得的回报。Okay.
All right, let's take a break here and then we'll move on to our second translation. Okay, so our second sentence is quite different. It is talking about a serious problem in the world right now. Sentence 1 reads, The worst drought in 4 decades has ruined crops in southern Madagascar, leaving tens of thousands of people struggling to find food.
这句话的中文呢是40年来最严重的干旱摧毁了马达加斯加南部的作物，让成千上万的人挣扎着寻找食物。那这边的时态同学们觉得要用什么呢？我们要讲的是从开始到现在40年来的状况。好，所以呢我们要用的是现在完成式。
So we've got this word drought here. Now, a drought is basically a period of time when very little rain falls, normally causing a disaster. Normally when this happens, there's a shortage of food or there's not enough, or industries can be impacted as well. So a drought is a kind of natural disaster, and other ones we could talk about include floods. That's when there's too much rain and, rivers get too big and they flow over their banks or something, or lakes do as well. Or we could talk about plagues. Now, plague can be a big disease. It can be like eating. But here I want to talk about its other meaning, which is when there's lots and lots of insects ruining a crop or ruining all the food in a place. So if a plague hits a farm, then that farm's crops, all of the wheat, for example, might be eaten by bugs, and then the farmer loses a lot of money and a lot of food.
OK， 所以当这个 natural disasters 天然灾害发生的时候，可能会摧毁一些事情，摧毁一些东西。所以呢，摧毁这个动词啊，我们要用到的是 ruin。那这句话呢，里面你也可以用 destroy、spoil 或是 devastate 来替换它。So for example, the typhoon devastated parts of the coast, leaving many people without homes. 也就是台风摧毁了部分的沿海地区，让很多人无家可归。
Now, we can also, seeing as we're talking about this natural disaster, use the phrase crops fail. Now, fail here doesn't mean to fail an exam. When we use the word fail with crops, it takes on a special meaning. When crops fail, they die before the farmer can harvest what they need. So basically, when droughts happen, the plants obviously don't grow as big as they should, or they die, and therefore it's not possible to get food from those plants. And that's when we would say the crops fail.
再来呢，我们要表示的是让。那在这样的意思当中啊，它是使点点点处于某种状态哦，让点点点处于某种状态。句型我们用到 leave 加上受词，后面有4种，好，你可以接下去的方式。第一个 adjective 形容词，或者是 VING， 或者是 VPP， 或者是介系词片语。So for example, his boyfriend's distant behavior left Ian sad and confused.Ian 的男朋友疏远的行为让他感到难过又困惑，所以你会看到 leave 好变成了过去式 left， 后面加上人之后加上了2个形容词 sad and confused。再来呢，我们可以用 leave 在以下的句子当中 I left your clean clothes folded up in the laundry room。 我把你干净的衣服叠好在洗手间里面了。那这里呢接了受词，也就是 your clean clothes 之后，选用的是过去分词，因为衣服是被叠好、被折好的。好，所以我们看到 folded 这个字。好，接下来呢，我们要讲到的是成千上万的、数以万计的，可以用 tens of, thousands of。那 thousands of 本身表示的是数以千计的 ，hundreds of thousands of。表示的是数十万计的。那这些片语呢，有时候不一定等于实际的数字，好，则是用来强调数量很多。So for example, I woke up this morning and found thousands of ants in my kitchen. 我今天早上醒来的时候，发现厨房里面有上千只的蚂蚁。That would be gross.
It would be. It sounds like an infestation.We could also talk about, while we're on this subject, struggling to find food. So we've got in the sentence we said that they're leaving tens of thousands of people struggling to find food. And when we use struggle here, we're saying that people are going hungry. They're not able to find food. So to go hungry means not to have food. And it can be used in a non-serious sense. For example, if you don't want to eat your dinner, you'll just have to go hungry.Or it can be used to represent a famine. Many people are going hungry in this country right now. Okay, so should we move on to the second sentence?
Sure. So our sentence number 1 and 2 talk about famine. Famine 代表的是粮荒、饥荒，好，人们没有食物吃。
Right, exactly. So what could have caused this famine?
Maybe crop failure, like you just mentioned. And crop failure caused by natural disasters like drought.
Yes, exactly. I think also it could be caused by poor infrastructure. So infrastructure is the structures and the buildings and the roads and all of those different things that a government builds or that are in a place, in a country or in a region that helps people do things. So if a country is very poor, then it might have bad roads, it might have not have good factories, it might not have good power supplies. Those are all different kinds of infrastructure. And for that reason, when there's a natural disaster, those places suffer much more than rich countries that might have, reservoirs with lots of extra water, or they might have very efficient ways of getting electricity. And so those places are going to be hit much worse. And Madagascar is quite a poor country.
没错，所以呢，比较穷困的国家，他们的基础建设infrastructure 就会比较差，那这样子呢，他们的国民就会比较容易遇上粮荒的问题。
So what is the second sentence? It is, what's more, as global temperatures continue to rise, the food crisis will only worsen. Why do we think this is?
So because of the climate change, we might have droughts or floods, like you said, like you mentioned, and there will be crop failure, right?
Yes, exactly.
And then that will lead to the food crisis.
Exactly. So as global temperatures get higher, we get more extreme weather. We get more extreme typhoons. We get more extreme droughts, more rain, less rain, all of that. And it basically makes the weather more extreme and it more difficult to farm things. And therefore, there will be less food.
是的，极端气候会影响到我们。好，再来呢，我们要说的就是这一句的中文，它是此外，随着全球气温持续上升，粮食危机只会恶化而已。那这个是一个事实。好，所以呢，我们要用到的是现在简单式描述事实。那首先呢，我们要看的是此外，而且我们要怎么用呢？可以用 What's more。用以附加说明前一句的论点，那其他可以表示这样子的意思的转折词呢，还有 also、besides、moreover、furthermore、in addition 或者是 additionally， 好，你都可以互换着使用。So for example, many schools treat art as a waste of time. Furthermore, creative careers are often unappreciated. 许多学校将艺术视为浪费时间。此外，创意职业常常不受重视。
We're giving two reasons there. We're saying that schools don't treat art as important, and also artistic and creative ideas are often unappreciated. Here we can also actually use another expression, what's worse. Now, what's worse is a lot like what's more, but it just emphasizes that what follows is negative. And we could use this in Elsie's example or in the translation sentence. What's worse, as global temperatures continue to rise, the food crisis will only worsen.
没错，所以 what's worse 可以带出更糟糕的事情。
Exactly.
再来呢，我们要看到的是随着的用法，我们可以用连接词 as 后面接一个完整的子句。那本句话呢，也可以用 with 来代换哦。不过呢，句型是 with 加上受词之后，加上受词补语，逗号之后再接上主词以及一个动词。那受词与受词补语的关系呢，如果为主动，那我们的受词补语就用 VING； 如果是被动，那我们就用过去分词 VPP。那本句呢，可以改写为 What's more, with global temperatures continuing to rise, the food crisis will only worsen. 那再给同学们一个例句哦。With my parents out of the house, I plan to relax and watch TV all day. 我父母不在家，我打算放松一下，整天看电视。
Okay, and another word we could use here to replace the as is given. Okay, so given, when we put it at the beginning of a two-clause sentence, it tells us that what follows is the reason for something happening. So we can say given that, and then a subject, verb, noun, or we can just say given followed by a noun. So we could say, given the rise in global temperatures, the food crisis will only worsen, for example. Or given that the global temperatures are continuing to rise, the food crisis will only worsen. So basically what it's doing is it's introducing the reason. It's basically kind of like 因为 in Chinese. Use it in the same structural form as 因为. So given is followed by a noun normally. For example, given James's financial situation, I don't think he'll be going on any luxury vacations this year. And if we want to follow it with something other than a noun, we can also use given the fact that. Given the fact that Susan doesn't speak Spanish, I don't think she is the right person to greet the Mexican delegation at the airport this afternoon. Because she doesn't speak Spanish, she's not the right person to greet these Mexican politicians, basically. We should find somebody who can speak Spanish.
所以 given 它有因为的意思，那我们可以直接加个名词，或者是 given the fact that 再加上子句，两种用法。那再来呢，我们要讲的是粮食危机，可以用 food crisis。crisis 表示就是危机了，那它常见的搭配词呢，还有 economic crisis 经济危机、financial crisis 金融危机，或是 energy crisis 能源危机。What about its plural form?
Yes, crises. So we have one crisis, two crises, not crises. So during serious crises, countries might declare a state of emergency. Now, a state of emergency is basically a national declaration that says things are very, very bad right now, and we have to stop our regular way of life so that we can combat things. I'm not sure if Taiwan declared a state of emergency last year. I don't think it did. But some countries did during the COVID crisis, especially at the beginning in Europe. I think Italy may have done so because all of the hospitals were full. Lots and lots and lots of people were getting COVID. And so it was very, very dangerous because nobody had any vaccinations then. So that would have been a time when somebody declared a state of emergency.
那接下来呢，我们要看到恶化的用法，我们可以用这个动词 worsen。那如果是越来越糟，我们可以用 get worse and worse. So for example, Sasha's flu got worse and worse until she had to be admitted to the hospital. 她的流感越来越严重，直到她不得不住院。
Next, we can also talk about the word deteriorate as well, which basically is worsen, but it means to get worse very, very quickly. So, for example, we could use this to talk about health. We could say Sandra's health deteriorated after she caught the virus. She became very unhealthy. She became very sick. We could also use it to talk about communication. The debate deteriorated into fighting after someone called the speaker a slur. So at the beginning, they were having a polite debate, and then someone said called someone a very mean name, and then it changed from a debate to a fight. It got much worse. It was much less polite. And we can also talk about, use deteriorate to talk about buildings as well and objects. For example, the mansion deteriorated because no one was taking care of it. Okay, so before we end our lesson today, let's go through the 4 sentences again. Withholding your real thoughts and opinions may seem like a quick way to lose your friend's trust. But this may not always be the case. White lies told to avoid hurting other people's feelings might actually be beneficial for interpersonal relationships. The worst drought in 4 decades has ruined crops in southern Madagascar, leaving tens of thousands of people struggling to find food. What's more, as global temperatures continue to rise, the food crisis will only worsen. All right, that's all from us for today, but we're going to be joining you soon to go through our topic writing assignment for this month. So until then, it's bye-bye from us.
Bye.
Bye.